Hi, Shumanto. Thanks finally for doing this. I am so happy to have you on Brands, Brews, and Banter.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this chat because the way that you've described it, that it's unstructured and freewheeling and you can say what you like, it sounds very different from the other podcasts that I've been on.
Okay. So, really looking forward to your unfiltered bests. Folks, of course, Shumanto does not need any introduction, but I'll still go ahead. Shumanto, you were the former South Asia ECD at Ogilvy. You were chairman and CCO at 82.5 WPP. I think most folks hearing this would know you from the English Nut. Some of people listening to this would know you from having seen you in the movies in Piku and others, but very few people seeing this would know you as the Peter England man.
Yeah,
My God,
right.
I absolutely loved that ad. Folks, if you haven't seen it, it's about 150 years old, but you do go on his YouTube, you'll find it. Um,
Karina.
Karina, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that your voice though? First of all, tell me that.
No, no. In those days, in ads, they never used, I mean, they had like these, even now, most of the time, they have dubbing artists come in and finish the ad. So you don't get to use your own voice. Yeah.
But you know
So,
what I was thinking? So, like for that ad, what if you do like a 2024 version of it in which the guy is actually the OG stalker? Like he hired the junkie and then he,
yeah,
he takes the newspaper aside and actually he planned it all.
yeah.
Like that would
But
be really
I mean,
interesting.
things like stalking, I mean, today is a no-no, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
you can't even like jokingly talk about being a stalker, and that ad was full on about stalking, and
Yeah.
sort of in a way glorified it. So yeah, uh, I don't know. In 2024, it would be very politically incorrect to make an ad like that.
Yeah.
By the way, also there is a uh, some ni blog or something about 90s ads.
Hmm.
And there's an ad which I was in for
Hmm.
Kodak cameras, the film cameras,
Yeah.
and which I didn't even remember because in the in the past year I've been approached, to do interviews where they said, "Could you please tell us what are the ads you've done?" And I completely forgotten that I'd done this Kodak ad, and so I just saw this ad yesterday, and I mean, of course, like I'm unrecognizable almost because I was so much younger. But again, I thought it was politically incorrect because it's about uh, the kid's first steps, and the mother is at home with the child, and me, the father, has gone out to work, and I come back and she says, "Guess what? Our son took his first steps." And I said, "Oh no, I've missed it." And she said, "No, you haven't missed it because I've captured it on the Kodak camera." And I say, "Oh, you like you managed to take a picture with the Kodak." I mean that's not what I say, but that's the internet. And she says, "A Kodak camera, ekdam simple," and that's the thing. And then
Oh
again,
my
the ad ends with her. So it was so simple that even this lady could use it. So I'm
God.
just
Oh my
thinking
God.
that like things have changed so much that even so both the ads that I we talked about me being in would be considered politically incorrect today. So yeah,
I
yeah,
think I've seen something like this. I think it's an old print ad, like a 40s American ad, in which there's either a dishwasher or a washer dryer, and says it's so easy that even a woman can use something like that. Like
yeah,
it's one
yeah,
of
yeah.
those Hall of Fame cringe ads which like keep coming up all the time. So this is like the same.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are these collections of those old American ads where they show, a woman lying down on the ground and the man's, foot on her. So there's all kinds of really offensive things which, I mean, you can't believe actually that, that in the 40s and 50s, these ads were considered perfectly acceptable.
But tell me,
Yeah.
in recent past, in the past 4 5 years, has there been some like a film or a concept which you really felt for, like which the team really rallied behind, and then there was a client which kind of wanted to walk on eggshells and said, "कि नहीं ये नहीं करेंगे." Like, tell me about like that kind of a
So
situation.
offhand, I can't think of a specific example, but many. I mean, most of the time, that's what happens. So your first presentation, especially, you burn the midnight oil and you come up with these concepts which you're really excited about, and you go and present them, and uh, the client doesn't buy them. And I remember back in the day, one of the things that clients used to say when they didn't want to, when they wanted to bomb your work, but still make it seem that there was a hope. So they say, no, this is a phase two campaign. This doesn't work. So you knew, of course, with experience that phase two never happened. And this particularly at Unilever, I used to hear this a lot. This is more like a phase two campaign. And you know, sort of, I learned the hard way that phase two is a phase that never happens.
Your
So,
face.
but yeah, I mean, honestly, can't think of a specific ad right now. But like I said, every every ad film, for example, that you see on air, I mean, there are so many rounds, uh, most of the time where the scripts that you're presenting, the campaign that you're presenting is getting totally bombed. That, yeah, it's, uh,
Tell
I
me
mean, that's
one. I'm saying, tell me
tell
one
you.
frustrating piece of client interaction where you felt like, of course, the Unilever one is a like it's. I think it's the oldest trick in the book. Okay? It's like saying when you want to get out of a shop and you say, okay, we'll just look around and we'll come back, and that comeback never comes. So that's the phase two
Uh,
equivalent. Tell me like one client interaction which really made you feel, okay, I wish there was no law and order and I could punch this
so,
person.
so, uh, yeah, I mean, there was a cement brand that I was working on for a couple of years from my last job, and I think that was one of the most frustrating experiences because there was a marketing head there who, uh, I mean, I couldn't believe. I mean, you wonder at times at how these people have these long and flourishing careers, and he'd worked at other agencies where Ogilvy was the agency. But you know what happened at 82.5, unfortunately, was that though it was an Ogilvy agency, we didn't have the clout of an Ogilvy. We couldn't say uh, we're Ogilvy, so F off. I mean, not that Ogilvy says that, but there is a lot of pressure that can be brought to bear uh, when you're walking in from Ogilvy. So to me, it was just unbelievable. While I said that we often do many rounds, I remember in one particular case for a commercial that we did end up doing, just from the script being approved to the final production, the marketing head wanted to do so many meetings. Initially, just with the agency, and you would say, no, every word we must look at and things like. And of course, with every round, it became worse as it usually does. That's the way the cookie crumbles when the marketing head and then he asks his juniors also, what do you think? And every idiotic comment that comes from any of them, then you're kind of forced to. And then we actually brought the director on board, who was a very good director. And normally, directors will come and do, at best, they'll do one interaction with the client before the pre-production meeting. So in this case, you know, the guy had to come in at least 3 or 4 times, and even with his casting, we went into round after round, and this guy was not. And at the end of it, the director called me up and said, Shumanto, I'm returning the advance money. I don't want to do this commercial. And I had to beg him. I said, look, whatever it is, if you do it, with all the compromises that we are making, it will still turn out a lot better than, if I have to go to a lesser director. And so, I kept this guy on board. And that's because, uh, having worked in the industry for so long, I have, strong relationships with most of the ad film directors. So I had to use that. But yeah, I mean, if you see the work that's come out on that brand, it's crap. I mean, most of the ads that we did were really, really bad. But uh, we didn't have a choice because, after presenting 40 scripts, one would get approved, and then we'd have 40 rounds of changes on the script. So you you ended up with a piece of shit.
I'm sure folks listening to this are going to 82.5's roster and figuring out which are the cement brands that you worked on. But and also, who was the CMO at the time? More importantly,
I
Yes, I'm sure
that would
you would
be.
have had some good ones also, right? Some like I'm sure Gilby would have given
uh,
you a few amazing client interactions that you loved.
uh, yeah, I think that uh, I've had some wonderful experiences. I mean, from going back many, many years, somebody that I had, a brand that I was really close to my heart was Maharashtra Tourism. And so the gentleman who was in charge, the IAS officer over there, I mean, he was fantastic because he had he had come in new to this particular assignment and he really wanted to do good work. So, like everything that I would go and present to him, he would say, "This is fantastic, it's fabulous, let's do it." So, I mean, of course, their budgets were really low, but at that was the era when print was still pretty big. So we managed to do some fantastic print campaigns together, and I still am in touch with him once in a while because he gets such a vision, and the people who they get transferred after a while in from these kind of. So once he left, things changed, and then we were not able to. But the he was there for 3 or 4 years, which is also quite a long period of time, and I think I did some of my best print campaigns uh, on Maharashtra tourism. And I remember we coined this the baseline Maharashtra Unlimited, and that was their baseline for many, many years. We created the logo and then lots of award-winning campaigns for them. So that was a really positive experience, and I really remember him fondly. His name is Ashish Kumar Singh. I remember him very fondly. So he's with some other government department right now. He's moved through many different assignments. Yeah.
Since you spoke of awards, I definitely want to ask you, what do we as an industry do about these Pan Masala awards? Like pretty much every publication worth its grain is giving you an award. And we have like on one end, of course, there's a demand problem, and then there's a supply problem, and there's also young creatives who want to get encouraged, like a pat on the back. So there's good and the
Yeah.
bad. Like what do you think about awards? Like, and do you think we give ourselves too many of them?
Yeah, I do. Of course, also because I'm out of the mainstream advertising job. I mean, I was also this young creative who was obsessed with awards. Though, of course, eh, those days there was not this proliferation of what you call pan masala awards. There were just a handful of people giving out awards, so then it meant it was more special at that time compared to what it is now. But yeah, I mean, now that I look at it, I feel that this whole awards thing is a bit of a con job anyway, because you are it motivates young creative people to burn the midnight oil, work like crazy, and put up with all the rejections that we were talking about, clients rejecting all the good stuff in the hope that there's that one piece they're going to be able to get through, and that keeps them going often, even when this agencies are not always able to pay the best of salaries. uh, this is a reality of the advertising business. And it was this sort of bait of the, okay, you can win an award and become famous. You have that your 15 minutes of fame by going up on stage, which kept you going. And now that I think about it, it's not the it's not the greatest of things. And coming to the Pan Masala Awards, it really is absurd today because I also keep getting invited to either do a panel discussion or to give out awards. And you're just amazed. And the other thing is they give out so many awards, they can't really even show the winning piece on screen. So you don't even know what it is, but it often doesn't look like it's anything great. It's not, it may be a very effective digital piece, but there doesn't seem to be like a big creative idea at the heart of it. And I feel that, regardless of how our media have moved on, we're in this digital age, and it's all about performance apart from anything else. Of course, effectiveness is important, but I think the ideal world is where there's a piece which is highly effective and it's got a fantastic breakthrough creative idea at the base of it. So yeah, so I just think that we need to have fewer awards. Otherwise, the respect that or when you put in your resume that you're an award-winning creative, it's not meaning that much anymore because every single person today is an award-winning creative.
Absolutely. I think guilty as charged, they do feel good in the
Hmm.
moment, but then I
Yeah.
think people see through the hogwash. Where are you finding your creative expression these days, Shumanto?
Uh, well, I the English nut is something that I have been working on for the past 4 years. In fact, one of the reasons that I started the English nut was because of the frustration of clients who don't approve your creative. And I said, what if I was my own client and I could do what I wanted? So that's kind of how it started, and uh, that's something that I'm passionate about. And I every week that's like a big part of my week. Thinking about what my video, main video is going to be the following because every Sunday I upload a video. So researching that, scripting it, shooting it, and all of that. So that's something that uh, I think that keeps my creativity going. Um, what else? I was approached to write a book based on the English nut. So I've been writing that manuscript.
Wow.
So in fact, now I've been approached to co-write another book about a filmmaker. So that's still in its early stages. So yeah, I find myself in the process of writing two books. Um, I'm also, I figured that now that I have more time on my hands, I want to do more acting. So I'm trying to get back into acting, which I'm finding quite challenging because now the whole thing is there are these casting directors, and it's really interesting. The casting directors who would have been dying maybe to speak to me when I was working at an agency now don't want to give me time of day when I send them an email or a WhatsApp saying, hey, I please cast me in something.
Really?
So that's like that's an interesting experience. But yeah, I'm doing theater workshops and sort of keeping myself uh, tuned up so that if and when the opportunity, I've done an ad uh, a few months ago, and I'm going to be doing another one this month. So yeah, and I've done a cameo in a web series, but I'm looking obviously to do much more substantial roles than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, but
So
tell me about the why behind it, like the why behind getting back to acting and like kind of wanting to pursue that love in a much deeper way.
so the vibe behind that is that after having done advertising for a few decades, uh, I mean, I don't think that I can be. I'm no longer so excited, but I'm still doing advertising projects freelance. Uh, but I always, acting was always something that I did on and off, but I was not able to pursue it because I didn't have the time. And so now that I want to get back into it, it's the you have to spend a lot of time on it, even honing your craft and all that. And I really enjoy that's the biggest thing. I think that what you're spending your time doing for any profession or a passion, whatever, it's if you're enjoying that, that's the most important thing. So obviously I would be more excited if and when I get a big uh, you know that breakthrough role. But even otherwise, I'm enjoying doing the workshops that I'm doing. I'm enjoying working on my diction and all the things that go into acting. And I'm watching a lot of theater myself because I think there's nothing that immediacy of seeing somebody on stage and especially somebody who's a good actor that you learn a lot from it and it's really exciting. I mean, for me, it's really exciting. And in fact, one of the things that I've discovered to my frustration now that I've become a very regular theater goer is that the whole culture of theater goers has really you know, deteriorated in this city. And I suppose one of the main culprits is the mobile phone, because though before every show they will, the group will come and announce, please switch off your mobile phones. People don't do it. So apart from the fact that some people don't switch their ringers off and you suddenly hear a phone ringing and all that, there's also somebody sitting next to you will invariably be checking their phone and sending messages, and that light that comes from the screen is the most distracting thing ever if you're trying to focus on the performance that's going on in front of you. So that is, I mean, if there's one thing that I could change, every time I go for a play, I have a very cold interaction with, because invariably the person next to you, because everybody is just checking them. I don't know why they've come to see a play, because they're checking their phones, sending messages. Once I went and there was, I think, cricket going on, and this person was actually checking cricket scores every minute. Till I just said, "Will you please stop?" In a stage whisper, so that I didn't disturb the. Yeah, so I just think, and then people. I go to the NMACC, which is a fantastic, the Ambani Cultural Center. It's fabulous, but they actually allow people to come in late, which is horrible,
Yeah.
because in one of their smaller theaters, the entrance is next to the stage. So you're watching the play, and imagine like five people suddenly walking, making a lot of noise because the floors are wooden. Uh, I just don't get it. Like places like Prithvi, you could be like the biggest VIP, they will not let you in once the bell goes off and the show is starting. So yeah. So that's just one of my pet peeves, and I thought I'll just maybe somebody hearing this will take a call to stop allowing people to walk into a theater late.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can imagine somebody on stage how distracting, and like that would
yeah,
like just disrupt your flow, right? And that's
yeah,
really frustrating because you then quickly have to gain it back because there are a couple of
yeah,
hundred people looking at you. I can just
yeah,
imagine. But I want to double click on the English nut. Like, of course, I'm a fan. I've been a
yeah,
fan. Congratulations for 4 years because I saw the post you put up on LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah,
It's 4 bloody years, and the day I kid you not, the day you put up the episode with Mr. Tharoor, I was
yeah.
so happy. I was like, this is the collaboration that everybody wanted, but nobody would like like were not able to vocalize that this is what we needed. This is what the people needed. So how was just take me through the journey. Like,
It was a fabulous experience, of course. So it started with um, uh, there was an American comedian who had an Indian American comedian, uh, Hassan Minhaj, right? That's his name. So he came to India, and he gave a quiz to Shashi Tharoor with all the, with American slang,
hmm,
uh, which, and Shashi Tharoor didn't get any of the answers right,
like what?
because it was just like the word thick,
Oh,
apparently, which is spelled THICC. And I mean,
yeah.
honestly speaking, even I had to look up those words. I mean, they were like, I'm sure those words are, this was a few years ago, so those words have gone out of circulation by now, so they don't even exist anymore. So uh, I just put a video on English Nuts saying, "Dear Dr. Tharoor, you know, I think as the English nut, I should interview you and I should give you a quiz. And I promise you, we won't be talking about the kind of English that, you were quizzed on. We'll talk about proper English, Queen's English, and English that's spoken in India." And when I put that video, not that he saw it, but there was a young colleague of mine who saw that video and said, he said, I want to take this up as a project. Can I help you make it happen? And honestly, when I put that video, I did want to interview Shashi Tharoor, but it was in my head something in the distant future. So this guy said, no, no, let's try to make it happen. So I said, okay. Then began this long journey where we were trying to figure out how to get in touch with Shashi Tharoor. Uh, we had various numbers of his managers. I mean, this guy was getting hold of them. And, we would always reach a dead end somewhere because the person would not. even if we managed to speak to somebody, they would not be able to get us a slot with Shashi Tharoor. I found an email address of his and I wrote an email to him, but I did not get a reply to that either. So this went on for almost 6 months till one fine day. And by that time, we were speaking to the fourth or fifth manager whose number we had got. And that guy suddenly one day said, listen, November, whatever, this date, you come to Delhi and you do the interview. And I was quite nervous about it because, I mean, the English Nut is a labor of love. I don't make any money on it, honestly. And so I was traveling with two colleagues because we had to shoot it and we needed to, have there had to be the three of us. And so I was buying everybody's tickets and we said, okay, we'll take a morning flight and so that in case there are flight delays on, even though we were given a time of 5 p.m., we'll go and recce. So we figured out we went and we first checked out where his house is. Then we sat at a restaurant which was near his house after staking out his place. And we went about an hour before we were to get there, and we were made to sit in an outhouse.
You've
And
been a stalker for quite a few number of years, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've become a stalker. So and then we were called in and told that you can set up your equipment.
Hmm.
And so we set up the equipment, and so then the manager came and said, "Oh, he's going to be late because he's doing an interview with some radio jockey internationally, and that's running late." He has some other work. So anyway, finally he came in and he sort of strode in and
Hmm.
he said, "Oh, I just have 20 minutes," and we had been promised an hour.
Hmm.
And I panicked because I had these sheets of paper with all my questions, and I was thinking, which, if I just have 20 minutes, which other questions which should I drop and which ones should I go ahead with? So I was like, sort of rifling through the papers. I dropped them on the floor and all that. And anyway, then I started.
Hmm.
And then once I started, he really warmed up to it and he was answering all my questions. And then, 20 minutes passed and his manager, I could see somewhere in the background who kept sort of gesturing to me to basically to tell me to wind it up. But I
Yep.
kept ignoring her.
Yeah.
And Shashi Tharoor was gladly answering all my questions. And so I think after 45 minutes, I felt that I'd asked him almost all the questions on my list and I wrapped it up. But it was a fabulous experience because what I really liked about him was he was a person who didn't mind being seen as making a mistake on camera. If
Hmm.
he didn't know, if he gave a wrong answer, or uh, he didn't mind. I mean, he didn't mind that, people were going to see this. Whereas I think most people of that level in India would say, no, I'm not going to, please delete this thing because I don't want to be seen as making a mistake. And he was really, really sporting. So that's what I loved about him. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, 500,000 views now, right? Something like that.
I, I haven't checked. Yeah. But what I did was I divided it into some four videos, and I still have one last episode to air. So
Is it?
that, and I'm waiting for the elections to get over because even for the last episode which I uploaded last year, I had a huge amount of problem because every time it was when we wanted to promote it. I normally don't promote most of my videos, but Shashi Tharoor, I wanted, and every time the ad kept being rejected by Google, saying that this is an election ad,
Yeah.
and this went on for 6 months, and
Hmm.
I know some like top level people at Google. So I finally got in touch with them and I said, please, can you help? Because I don't know what's going on. I mean, I
Hmm.
thought it's a conspiracy because of the party that he belongs to. They said, no, 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 there's
Probably.
nothing like that. And they
Hmm.
completely,
Hmm.
this that theory of mine. But yeah, finally, somebody from there and a really senior person stepped in and then the ad went through. But I'm not willing to go through this heartache of. So I'm hoping that once the election is over, and then they won't accuse me of running an election ad. And it's so absurd because obviously I don't know whether this must be all mechanized because any human being who sees the video cannot possibly think that it's got anything to do with
Yeah, yeah.
politics. Yeah,
Algorithms.
yeah, yeah,
Algorithms eventually will, like,
yeah, yeah,
Skynet will rise up and rule us all. So this is the first step
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
algorithms ruling us. Tell
yeah,
me about
yeah.
the one with, and that's like I'm a personal fanboy of Mr. Ruskin Bond. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so I think Ruskin Bond, another another former colleague of mine was doing some designing work for. There's something called the Ruskin Bond collections. There's like a pen with his signature on it, etc. Which uh, Ruskin Bond's grandson started this endeavor to create merchandise around that. So this colleague of mine was helping them out with that, and I think he showed them the Shashi Tharoor interview.
Hmm.
So then they said, "Can we get this guy to interview Ruskin
Oh
Bond?"
wow.
So I said, "Yeah, of course, that would be lovely." And then I remember, I'm not a person, I don't have this concept of being a fanboy. I don't, I don't, sort of have adulation for film stars or anybody else. But I remember when I was speaking to Ruskin Bond's grandson to plan out this thing, they suddenly put Mr. Bond on the call. And I was so excited. And, I've heard his voice so many times on his talks and interviews and all of that on YouTube. So I was so, so excited. And yeah, anyway, so then I actually spent a lot of time going, I had not read all of his books, but I said, you have to, if you're going to be interviewing an author, and what you find even with many of Shashi Tharoor's interviews or with interviews of Ruskin Bond, it's the same questions with the same answers over and over again. And I said, I don't want to do that. So I sort of did a deep dive into his writing and
Hmm.
who his inspirations are and all that. And uh, so then I was ready and I put together a set of questions and I emailed it to him so that he knew what they were. And then the time came and I went to Missouri and we shot. And again, I was told that, he doesn't keep too well, so we'll have to take a lot of breaks. And I don't know whether you'll have time to ask all the questions, but he was absolutely game for everything. In fact, when we were breaking for lunch, he said, let's finish the interview and then break for lunch. And though he's like a great foodie and he loves to eat, he
Hmm.
still said this. So, yeah, and it was just simply wonderful to talk to him because he's got a really gentle way about him.
Hmm.
And he has so much general, when he talks about his favorite authors, he'll tell you, he wrote this in such and such year, or, he traveled to, wherever in such and such year. So it's just mind-boggling to me that, he remembers so many things. So yeah, it was great. And what I was really keen on doing was getting him to read from some of his work. I
Hmm.
got him to recite some of his poems, which was fantastic because I had not seen him do that in any of and I'd seen some interviews where he was asked and he told the interviewer, "Oh, you would do a better job."
Hmm.
And they read it out. And he said the same thing to me. And I said, "Yeah, but you know what? People would be far more interested in hearing you read your poems than they would be in me reading them." So he
Hmm.
agreed and he uh, and then one of his favorite books growing up and a book that inspired him to become a writer was David Copperfield, Charles Dickens' David Copperfield. So I got him to read from that book
Oh,
as
wow.
well. And in fact, I got him to autograph the book of Charles Dickens, who was his major inspiration, apart from also getting him to sign his books for me. So yeah, it was a absolutely wonderful experience. Yeah,
Where
I
does the
really
English not
cherished
go
that.
from here? What can we
Yeah,
expect?
that's a really hard question to answer actually. I don't know where uh it's going to go. I mean, I just in a way I just keep soldiering on. I just look at it, okay, this next week this is the video that I'm going to run. And it's not easy, because when you don't have like when you're in an agency, you have all the resources available to you. So here I do have a couple of people helping me, but it's just not the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, and especially uh, like if I'm traveling, for example, and I need to make sure that I have uh, the video ready before I go. So if I'm traveling for 2 weeks, then suddenly I have to do a lot of work in advance. And where does it, to answer your question, where does it go? I don't know. I'm just hoping that the changing world will tell me what they want to sort of see next from the English. Now, one of the things that I started doing a few months ago was people used to in the comments always tell me, can you please discuss such and such word or such and such phrase? So I have now many of my videos now are basically, I say that, my viewer whose name is such and such
Hmm.
wanted me to discuss this word, and then I discuss it. So I feel that that's a really nice thing because you're interacting in that way with your viewers and giving them what they want. So that's one of the things that I've started doing. Uh, of course, I would love to, interview some other authors. Uh, like maybe one of my favorite authors is Amitav Ghosh,
It's
like
amazing.
who's
Absolutely.
I mean, I just love his novels. Vikram Seth is another one. So people like that, if I ever got a chance to interview them, I would be totally excited. Uh, so yeah, and the way both Ruskin Bond and Shashi Tharoor happened was, it was not initiated by me in a sense, but
Mhm.
it there were other people involved who made it happen for me. So I don't know who's going to make or what the universe is going to make happen for the English Nut next. I'm waiting to see that. Uh, yeah,
Like, I'd really love for you to have a chat with Amitav Ghosh. Like, I'm big fan. Like, I met him once at one of the lit fests, and I got him to autograph Sea of Poppies for me. Like, he's just got the
okay.
most lovely demeanor, just the softest
Huh.
person. And because in your mind, when you're speaking to an author, right, you're carrying this baggage of the characters that
Yeah,
he's conjured. You're like,
yeah,
okay, it came from here.
yeah,
So I would love you to have that conversation with him, right? And I really hope, like, I could have helped you make it happen, but nahi, but I'm sure somebody
yeah.
listening would put two and two together.
No, but and it's also a very daunting thing, It's the same thing, you're talking to this big author who's done this amazing work, and you feel that, what your questions need to have a lot of substance to them. And at the same time, it has to be something that makes sense for the audience of the English nut. So it's
Hmm.
they're there to, in a sense, learn English. So yes, of course, they're English novels that we're talking about, but like when I did the Shashi Tharoor interview, because he's known for being the English teacher to the nation, so it was very easy to get into that groove. With Ruskin Bond, it was a little different, but I still found ways, of bringing it. I mean, but I think also the other interesting thing with Ruskin Bond is that in India, people who don't read novels, they don't read books, but the one author that they would have read in English would be Ruskin Bond. Everybody says, oh, Room on the Roof, I read it when I was in school. So
Yeah,
that made it easy. But then somebody like Amitav Ghosh, he's in a more rarefied atmosphere. So you have to be like a serious reader of English novels to have read his books.
yeah.
So there are many, many people. The people who read the Chetan Bhagats of the world will not have read. Uh,
Please interview Chetan Bhagat. Please do that.
no, no, please. I, I,
It has to.
I
I would
believe
pay
that
for
there's a
that to happen.
category. A category in India of English books or English writers for non-readers,
Yeah,
of which the Crown Prince, of course, is Chetan Bhagat. And at one time, Shobha De was very much
yeah.
part of that. I'm sorry to say that the books that they write are, and I don't think they're worth the paper that they're printed on. But uh, yeah, and no, and all the people, the thousands of people who read their books, but they've never read an Amitabh. I mean, there are so many fantastic Indian uh, authors writing in English. We've already talked about Amitabh Ghosh. and Vikram Seth. Salman Rushdie is also uh, originally from India. He used to work at Ogilvy at one point in
Is
time.
it? I
So
don't know about that.
yeah,
Oh, very
yeah,
cool.
he did. So yeah, so he was also from an advertising background. Um, yeah, so I just hope that people start reading some of these kinds of authors. I've done a couple of videos with book recommendations, and I think it's time for me to do another one because I would really like people who are interested in reading English novels in India read good ones rather than the trash. And I find it really sad that, people writing books in English in India, they don't care about grammar, punctuation, they
Mm.
just ramble on and on. And it's like, uh, I mean, maybe they have a good subject matter and the basic story that they have is good. But I mean, to me, as the English nut, it's very painful for me to read a sentence which is, uh, I mean, if not ungrammatical, definitely unidiomatic. So it's really, and the publishers also. What I don't get is the same international publishers when they publish a book abroad. You won't find a single mistake in those books. But I don't know, they have a different set of standards for the books that they publish in India, which are full of mistakes. In fact, that's one of the things that I'm worried about when eventually my book is published, that there should not be any errors, and that there should be a really good proofreader who's going through it. Because as the writer, no matter how much I try, I'm sure I will there will be a few mistakes that will go through. And what I've realized that the publishers don't really seem to care at all. So it will be on my head to figure out, uh, somebody to make sure that there aren't any mistakes. Because if it's a book about the English language, all the more reason that there shouldn't be any mistakes in it.
No, absolutely. Like I
Yeah,
have super
yeah.
high expectations from your book, and I'm expecting a signed copy. So I'll drop in my
No,
address
no,
to do that.
I'd be happy to give that to you, but don't get your expectations so well. I mean, it's like in the English nut in a book. I mean, it's the kind of topics. It's about the origin of words and phrases. So yeah, it's the kind of stuff that I've uh, tackled in my videos, but it's now as chapters in a book.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, I hope that the book gets published this year. The publisher has told me that they plan to work on it. I mean, I've actually submitted the manuscript
Okay.
and they said that we'll start work this year on it. So I don't know what they mean, but let's hope that it gets
Fingers
published
crossed.
this year.
No,
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah,
it will. Fingers crossed, and
yeah,
I hope it'll be a big success. Uh,
yeah.
do you get to work with a
Thank
lot
you.
of young creatives? Like, do you get to mentor or kind of be around a lot of young creatives, just trying to diffuse some of what you've absorbed? And what's your mechanism to
So
kind of do?
I'm somebody, I think that that was probably the part of my job that I enjoyed the most. Being around young people and mentoring them and learning from them. I always say that, especially because I'm a digital dinosaur, it's really good for me to be around digital natives who, it just comes naturally to them. So you can absorb and learn so much from them on that count. But yeah, I think that uh, some of my old team members, I'm still in touch with them. And, I sort of still like to think of it as if I have this big extended team, and some of them are in different parts of the world. But there's this feeling, and it was for me just so wonderful to interact with them. And we used to also I used to party a lot with my team, so that was also fun. And I think that that brought us closer together as well. Um, and today, because I'm not working in an agency, I'm not surrounded by young people, but I do. Once in a while, some of the people that I knew. Uh, in agencies, they do approach me to, just to meet up and chat, and maybe I don't know whether I'm imparting any wisdom to them or not, but yeah, I mean, I always have a lot to say to them, and I mean, I have a lot of strong points of view about young people and how they should approach their jobs and careers and things like that. So, um, without even being asked, I give my advice to them.
So, what would be your advice for a 21-year-old creative professional who's presenting work to a cement company CMO?
That's a that's like a double-edged sword. No, see. I think that my advice generally, the first piece of advice that I have for 21-year-olds junior creators is, or junior people in any profession, in any job, is that you cannot decide in 3 months that this job or this career is not for you. I mean, you need to spend I mean, I would say even 1 year at a minimum. Because what I find is that today people get into jobs with very false expectations. They think that, within their first 6 months, they're going to do an award, Cannes award, meaning a piece that will be entered by the agency for the Cannes Awards. But they don't realize that you have to earn the right. First of all, you need to develop the skills to create a piece of advertising like that, and also earn the right to work on those briefs. Uh, but it seems like people no longer have the patience to do that. And also, how can you know that this job is not for you in 3 months where you've really not got to work on those pieces? And what you're doing maybe is very basic because you're just starting out. So yeah, so I think the most important thing is that you have to have patience, regardless of what job or what career you go into. Don't just switch out because you're not liking your boss, or you're not liking the assignments you're working on. I mean, stick it out for a while. I'm not saying that forever you have to keep on hating it. Even after a year, you may consider doing something else, or switching to a different agency. But yeah. And in terms of presenting to a cement client, I think that for me, when I was a junior creative, the you never completely get over the disappointment of having your work rejected. But in the early years, you feel devastated because when you crack that idea, you think it's the best idea in the world, and it probably is a really good idea. And then you work night and day to and you're probably till you worked all night the night before the final presentation to make everything absolutely perfect, and you go in with this beautiful presentation, and the client is just looking at you with this very dull expression, and you realize that they're not warming up to your idea at all. So, one thing I think is to learn to be more thick-skinned in terms of accepting rejections and being able to bounce back and again come up with something really good, but which is probably more in line with the client's expectations, but is yet good. I think that is something that you have to do. And the other thing is that, we tend, and uh, even after many years of experience, I would say even I at times, you have to try to think about it from the point of view of the client. What is it that he would want and what is important to him? I mean, for me, is I'm excited because I think this is a really lovely piece of creative and I'd be excited to see it on air. But for them, it's like they've got huge amounts of money riding on it, and it has to work for their business. And while it's true that a really good creative piece often does work very well for the business, a lot of time clients are not able to see it, and they see a more literal translation of their brief, which ticks off all the boxes as being the thing that's going to really work for their business. So I think as a young person presenting, we have to try to put ourselves in the shoes of this CMO, which is very hard for a young creative to do, but maybe uh, read some of the publications on marketing articles and all that, interviews of these people to see what is making them tick, and then try to find out or say that thing which is going to click with them. I mean, that this is the hardest thing to do, but I think that is the secret to success.
That's a lovely tip, though. Reverse engineer the reaction that you want.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So Shumanto, just one final question. Like with so many things that you're like always dabbling in, how do you choose what to kind of expend your creative energies on, and how do you decide what is an effort for phase two?
I don't know. I mean, I think that a lot of it, honestly, I mean, though one would like to think that, one is sort of masterminding his what he is working on most of the time. A lot of times it's what is falling in your lap that you work on. You answer the emails that you get in life, so to speak. So that's one part of it. And of course, you always, yeah, I mean, you do the things that, like I said, I, I never got the time to really pursue my acting career, and I'm trying to do that. I'm at least trying to do all the things which would hopefully enable me to have that career. So you can sort of orient your efforts towards the thing that you want to work on. In terms of advertising, yeah, I mean, uh, if there's a brand that you're passionate about and you would want to work on, then you could try joining the agency that has that brand or has those brands. Try to join the agency which uh, has been doing great work across brands. I mean, in fact, of course, the house of Ogilvy has consistently over decades produced some great work. I've been seeing in recent times that the agency called Enormous has been producing some really lovely work. And,
Yeah.
in a time where everybody's doing this very correct, purpose-driven work and all that, which is all well and good. I mean, they're still using humor and making single-minded points. That Jaguar fittings, the uh, the lighting
Yeah.
campaign. It was
Stunning.
just absolutely, it was in a sense the most obvious idea, and yet it was the most creative. And of course, just the way that they executed it was absolutely fabulous. And I believe that they've just won the Grand Effie on
Yeah, yeah, they
Jaguar
did.
this
Yeah.
year. But over the last couple of years, they've done such entertaining work on that. And then I think that was at least 2 years ago, in fact, this campaign that I mentioned. And then last year, they worked on Asahi Glass, and that also they've won some uh, awards on internationally, where it's for it, noise cancellation window glass.
Mm.
And you see people, there's a bank robbery going on, but the car is being pushed on the road so it doesn't make a sound. And the thieves have their fingers on their lips.
Mm.
And instead of shooting a gun, somebody takes the bullet and they run. And, so it's basically, you just wonder why everybody's doing these strange things, you know, in
Mm.
a very silent and strange fashion. And then at the end, you realize when the glass is introduced that it was their way of saying that,
Mm.
it's either this or you have noise cancellation. So
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I really miss those kinds of humorous and single-minded films that we used to do back in the day, because somehow uh, nowadays there are not as many of them coming out. So you see a lot of boring advertising on air.
Yeah. So I absolutely cognizant of time. Absolutely enjoyed this conversation. I got a lot out of it. Appreciate the genuineness of it. Really excited about what's in store for the English Nut. Really want to see you interview some of the people that we talked about, and want to see more of you on stage and on screen. Uh,
Yeah,
so thank you so much
I
for your time,
I want to
Shumanto.
see myself there also. Thank you very much for your good wishes. And hopefully the next time we talk, some of these things would have happened already.
Definitely would. Thank you so much, Shumanto. You have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye.